I'm a little scared because there's only a couple people in this world that I have a lot of conversations with about a lot of things that the rest of the world doesn't know. And you're one of them, and you get to ask me questions today. So I'm like super, what's going to happen?
Good thing I take that with a little bit of
Good.
responsibility, huh?
I appreciate that.
This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Hoots on the Ground podcast with no bullshito. And I'm coming to you today. My guest, if she was a snake, she would have bit me. She's been under my nose for the last year and a half, every day almost. Miss Jennifer Lacy, the famous lady. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I haven't been this excited for a guest ever, I don't think. Don't tell anybody
You say
else.
that to everybody?
No, definitely not. I promise. Don't hurt me. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time today. I want to kick it off. Tell me who you are, Miss Jennifer.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me see how I round that up. I am Jennifer Lacy. I am a mom of two amazing girls. Let's start with that. That's the big one. I also dabble in a couple other things. I am the lean practice leader for Robbins and Morton, who is a national healthcare general contractor, and have been with them for almost 20 years. And get to help support a lot of the internal processes and culture and all the fun stuff that I love to be in. I get to do that every day for them. So that's exciting. And then I also sometimes dabble in some stuff with Jesse. So I own, co-founded, whatever you want to call it, our platform with No BS with Jen and Jess. And so every other Saturday morning, we do live streams talking about the uncomfortable topics and conversations in construction that people don't like to lean into, and we just jump into them and exhibit vulnerability, transparency, no BS conversations. So there's that. And we also co-wrote a book with Jesse, Lean in Love, which is applying the 5S lean tool process to personal relationships. So that's been amazing and fun, and it's been a roller coaster ride. And then we got a reflection journal that goes along with it, and we're just what happens.
Yes, I love it. And I'm a huge fan of the book. I've got like 17 copies myself. A couple of them are actually signed. But you're not just an author. What else did you do for the
Well,
book?
so I also illustrated all of the visuals in the book. So yes, I got one up on Jesse.
Which are pretty amazing too, by the way. And also, I know how like you are like such a planner and you're always like looking ahead and looking forward to things. So today I came up with
Whoa! Oh
an
my
agenda of things that we need to go through and talk about today. And
God.
so I was going to kick it off and ask you my favorite one, but I'd love for you to just dive in here and maybe
Oh my
pick a
gosh.
topic. Where are we headed next, Miss Jen?
Wow, let's see. Oh my gosh, there's like that's like my brain is an overload
Hold
right
on,
now.
there's more. Don't worry.
I don't even know. I'm better. I'm not even. I don't even want to pick because then my brain will start trying to overthink it. So you ask me, and off the cuff, I will try to answer whatever I can.
But we had to have an agenda of
Of course
topics
we
for
did.
Miss
Yes.
Jen, right?
So Justin's going to be so much. He's going to love that you had that all ready to go.
It might have been his idea, to be honest with you. I think we're making a pretty good headway down the list already. So, a couple of things that I've heard you say a lot in the past. One, people want to matter. Yes, I'm
Yes.
admitting it to the public. Miss Jennifer Lacy came up with that. I stole it and I've ran with it and I've never looked back.
That's okay.
But I also hear you say ripples of impact a lot. And
Yeah.
so I'm just like, what the hell does all that mean? Especially when you combine the two of those.
Okay, so we'll start with ripples of impact because I feel like that led into some other stuff. About a year and a half ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I got asked to be on this crazy Learnings and Missteps podcast by this crazy person that we all know as Jesse. And we were on there and he interviewed me. It was my first podcast that I had done. I've done a couple since then. And we were on there and he always has a question of like the behind the scenes, like only the people that
Fans only, right?
Yeah, he has one of those that, and there's a snip that he usually takes out of each of them. And one of them is, what is that one thing you want to leave, your legacy? What is that thing what are you trying to do that is going to change some things? And I had listened to some other ones and I'm like, oh, he's probably going to ask some questions like this. And I had been mulling around with it, and just the way I show up, the way I engage with people, it just was one of those things that had been coming to the surface over and over again. Ripples of impact. How do we show up? And then how do those interactions, those connections, those engagements then create ripples of impact into other people's lives? And it was just like this thing that just kept blaring in my face. And so I said it for the very first time on his podcast. And then I think because I put it out there into the world, that it became this like way bigger thing than I was anticipating. And then it feeds into the stuff that Jesse and I are doing on No BS, just how we show up, and then the conversations we have, and then just the comments and the little connections, and people introduce, hey, I heard that you said this, and then I want you to meet this person. But it's, I guess, in my face, I realized that if we just continue to show up and we continue to be the genuine people we are, like, we have no idea those ripples of impact that we're creating that we never see. And that they're impacting people down the road. You mentioned one, it was funny on our call, like you were on a superintendent's huddle in North Carolina.
Just yesterday.
Yeah. And you were like, and a superintendent on there was referencing a presentation I did at LCI Congress in New Orleans in October, and something I had said.
Not just referencing, but let me get this straight, because he actually pulled out his notes and he quoted you on 3 different points within the presentation on measuring lean implementation.
And I'm not a superintendent, so I just want to be clear. Like it's like those ripples of impact that I realized that, again, just the conversations we have, the connections we make, the relationships, all the things that we're doing, and just how it's creating those ripples into people's lives, and how it's helping our industry see things, get better, have more vulnerable conversations. But it just keeps happening.
And these ripples, are these ripples always good? Can they be bad? Tell me more about the ripples.
Okay, so just like we throw a stone in the water, right? We've had this whole water analogy conversation multiple times, but ripples are ripples. So it's like, you can't go, this is going to be a good ripple, this is going to be a bad ripple. This ripple may end up causing some destruction or devastation, or it may end up being something that changes somebody's life for the good. We don't get to control the ripples. All we can control is that one first drop, that first rock, that first thing we did that starts the process. And so what does that look like? What is that first rock? Is it something that you're doing that starts that process in a good way, in a bad way, in a negative way, in some toxic way? What are you doing? Because that will continue to grow without you even being in that space.
So make your ripple count is what I hear you saying. You're going to cannonball that baby.
Yes.
Yeah. What's all that have to do with people?
Okay. So then that led into the stuff, again, some of the conversations Jesse and I were having around the book, which is the things we were doing with the 5S tools, and then relationships. And we were really focused on, okay, how does this apply to the job site? How do we make sure that we're hitting our audience, the customers, the people, making sure they see the connection to work as well as home? And then what came through those conversations was that people show up to work, and we want to make sure that they know their work matters. And then people go home and they still want to be valued and want to be important to the people that they love. And then that just blew up into a conversation on, they come in the gate and then go out the gate, but they don't get to check themselves on, my humanness is going to stay here, and the way I produce outcomes is going to stay here. And I just got to check those at the gate. I'm like, whoa, we realized that you can't do that. You can't just go, I'm going to leave my heart here, but I'm going to bring my brain here. And so I think that conversation then exploded into how people show up And people don't intentionally wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to screw somebody over today. I don't think there's a lot of people that do that. Or I want to screw up today and cost the company that I work for thousands of dollars. I want to go home because I have to, because I get injured today. Like, people don't show up. They don't just show up that way. And so
instinctually, we're just good people, right?
And yes, and they want to matter, and they want their work to matter. So when we go and we focus so much on tools and processes and systems, which I value those, and they are so important for the work that we do, but we can't let that be the only driver. We have to also balance that with the person, and that they want to matter, they want their work to matter. And are we respecting them? Are we acknowledging them? Are we elevating them? Are we making sure we're doing that along with checking those boxes, that we're doing the tools and the processes and hitting the systems that are in place? But do those people go home and feel like what I did today mattered? And that's how that transpired.
What things do you do to make people matter?
Ooh, for sure, one-on-one conversations. Like, every time I engage with people, it's so important that they know I know who they are, that I see what they're doing, that I'm listening to them when they're speaking. And those seem so minor. Like that, those are really little things, but not a lot of people get that. A lot of people get someone that just is genuinely 100% intentionally listening to what they're saying, and then asking, what is Jesse's word? Interested questions versus interesting questions. So that's huge. Am I asking questions because this is an interesting topic, and tell me more because maybe I can apply this? Or am I asking interested questions to where they know, oh, this person really cares about what I'm saying, and they're interested in what I'm talking about, and that gets them to continue to talk. So it doesn't mean I don't talk, because I probably talk way more than I need to, but to get people to know that I value them and that what they're saying matters, it feeds into obviously my ripples of impact, that people just want to matter. Like, that to me it's just that connection. And I feel because I do that, when I leave, then there's something there that I've built and I've created, that they can call me, they can reach out to me, they can, hey, it closes a gap that runs rampant in our industry. The gap between people and processes. And it's there, it's across the board. And my goal every day is to help bridge that gap. And when I can go and create a personal connection with someone who is doing very technical, operational things, then they're human, I'm a human, and together I can help you in these human things, but I can also help you in these operational, technical things.
Yeah, how does that work though? When you, because you talk a lot about getting people uncomfortable, but at the same time, you want people to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We're wanting to bridge that gap and make connections, but how does making people uncomfortable do that for you?
How does it bridge the connections?
Yeah.
Number one is that when you're in a very vulnerable, uncomfortable place, you have choices. You can go into a ball, put your armor on and protect yourself, and just sit there and not expose yourself, not let people know and see who you are. Or you can go, I'm in a place here based on what's being exhibited by the person facilitating, by what the people around me are sharing and talking about, that I'm in a place that it's okay. And that doesn't mean everybody shows up the same way. In fact, I think the best example that I can, I guess, use for my personal experience is all of our new people that come into Robbins and Morton go through a new hire class, a cultural alignment class with me. Every new hire. And in that class, it's intended to break down silos, to get the barriers, to get the armor off, and to get people to share and talk and connect. These are all people new to our company, didn't work together before, didn't grow up together, don't have relationships together. They come into a room and what's unifying them is they're now working for the same company. Different roles, from pre-con to business development to superintendents to MEP manager, it didn't marketing, graphics designer, it didn't matter. Every new hire comes in and they're all in that room together. And the thing they have in common is they're all new. That's it. They're all new to a company. that somewhere has this cultural focus on people and business, continuous improvement, and they're in there listening and being able to be engaged in this conversation. And it's magical every time. There's never a time where I'm like, oh, that was a dud. Like, never. And it's part of it's how I show up. Part of it's exhibiting the behavior that I expect. That's huge. You can't go in and ask for things that you're not willing to do. That's a given. But when you are in that place, they start seeing it and they're feeling it. And then the armor starts coming down. Some of them have it. It takes them a little longer, and that's okay. But the armor starts coming down, and then they're connecting, and all these things are happening. It reminds me of like synapses in the brains. It's like I get to watch and see. And then it's like about 4-hour class with me. They get to do other stuff earlier in the day. But by the end of it, it's like they're getting each other's information. And hey, I'm going to call you. And hey, this and that. But we break it down to the point of the human. What do they like? What do they not like? And then they're making connections. Hey, I know how to do that. Well, let me show you how to do this. And they're having these connections in the room with people they'd never met before.
I mean, so that's all great and dandy, but what does that have to do with lean construction? Like, how does that help the
Oh, that's a
organization?
great question. And because I live in this space, both spaces, and lean is a big space I live in.
Can you define those two spaces for me? Because you lose me sometimes.
No, it's just two spaces. Oh, so the lean space, which is a big space that I play in, is part of my role within my company, but also just the way that I value what I see in our industry and what I see the potential that it could be, the brokenness that's in our industry. And for me, in my experience and what I have learned and just, again, engaged with and seen the value, lean is a way that we can potentially, I don't know if we're ever going to right the ship, but it's the way that we're turning the ship to where people are showing up differently and work's being done differently. It's been just how we're in the core of lean is respect for people. And to me, it's valuing people. Semantics, it is what it is. Valuing people. That's the core. And all the other things that come into it, last planner, gimbal walks, you can talk, all the different Kanban, all these things, Scrum, they're all absolutely important. But I'm going to say it again. I've said it 1,000 times. You can't do any of those things without the people. And so to me, because all these tools and processes are out there, we talk about it, we see it on social media, we engage with it because it's real. None of it can be done if you take the people part out of it. I say that in my class. I say that in pretty much anywhere I go because they're important, but they're not as important as making sure that people are taken care of. And that's where I have to live. And then it's like, okay, by the way, we're going to have daily huddles. We're going to do visual management. We're going to do all these things that are important. But without the people, it's an empty trailer.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is that making connections with people or caring about people makes all those things later on a little bit easier.
Yes.
That's the relationship.
And easier, you see my post, like easy is one of those things, work hard and be nice to people. It's going to be tough sometimes. And so easier is not so much as we're going to have conflict. We're not going to always agree. We're going to have some really tough conversations. But if you've established those relationships, I trust you. I know you trust me. I respect you. I value you. And I know that you're not going to go and throw me under the bus. When we have those hard, tough conversations where I have to push a little bit and you may get a little defensive, it's all based in respect. It's not based in attack or, you know what I'm saying? It's not this combative, I have to one up you because it takes that out of the equation. And it's like, hey, we are both looking at this and we've got to get there together. And it's going to be, and when you can look at it that way, it's hard sometimes. So I don't like to say lean makes things easier. In fact, it almost leans into harder things, but you're doing them in a different way. You're approaching them in a different way. And to me, it's been a game changer.
Interesting. I like where you're going there. You mentioned the phone call that we get on a few times already. And we love playing with your name, by the way, like agendas. And I've even heard genuine from you a couple of times. So two questions. Let's just start with one question. I want to
Okay.
handle it one at a time here.
Okay.
Why in the hell do you get up so early with these two crazy people twice a week?
Let's start let's see how it transpired. So Jesse and I were talking and planning some stuff for the not the No BS, that didn't exist yet, for the 5 in relationships.
The live
And then,
streams. Yep.
yes. And then you connected with me and said, hey, we need to be talking because we're like-minded. We need to do it. So you and I were having some conversations. And at some point, one of us, I'll just claim it because that way it makes more sense, that I was like, why are we not all 3 on a call? Because it was like we were having all these you were talking to Jesse over here. And so we all got on a call a year and a half ago, like one morning or 2, whatever, one morning a week or 2 mornings a week. And what happened on that call, what has happened,
You ganged up on
what was
Jesse and me, and yeah, and next thing I knew, I was answering all these personal questions. No, sorry.
no, so we got on this call, and I think at that point we had started establishing, again, the trust, the respect, hey, we're going to show up and I'm going to trust that you're not going to attack me and you're not going to tear me down and you're going to respect what I say, but also you're going to push me and you're going to ask me questions that are going to make me expound and think about things way beyond what I've done just with myself. And so what those conversations have done, one, I found 2 of my best friends in the whole world. So let's go with that. And then 2 is it has created this space for me, and I can only speak for me, you can speak for you, is that I can show up and I can, again, talk about anything from any perspective, and I get respect, but I also get, which is the magic, is people, Jesse will call me out. He'll call me out super, super quick, or I'll push you beyond a very comfortable, a general answer. And I'm like, oh, okay. But
I've squirmed a time or 2 with you.
Let's go and ask the second, third, and fourth questions. And so there's that. So just in our lives, how that's helped. But what it's done, it's made me, and I've seen it in y'all, made us better leaders, made us show up better outside of that because of our vulnerability and our transparency and how we show up with other people. But it then, which is magic, and I'm going to give Jesse credit for this, if we exhibit the behavior that we expect, it's magical what in front of you. And that's, I feel like, what we've done with the No BS with Jen and Jess, what we did with the book, what the 3 of us have been able to do just out there in the industry, where people are like, what are they talking about? This is not construction. This is not Blast Planner. And this is not the stuff that they're talking about. We did the blog on culture, which is, you love that word. But we did a 3-part blog. I can't remember how many, but on culture, the 3 of us. And it was not all about all the tools and processes, but how they integrate. But all that transpired from just our starting with these conversations.
Yeah, little known blog, actually. And we spent a ton of time on it, yet it hasn't been publicized a whole lot.
We need to do better.
In fact, in that blog, I think we invited people to join the No BS tribe towards the end of it. And yeah, that's
Lise
awesome.
got very vulnerable in that blog, and it was Lean Construction blog and culture, Lean 101 on culture. And we all got very vulnerable and talked. We had some personal stories in there that I think the ball was already rolling. And I think we just, again, wanted to exhibit, hey, you can talk about these things in construction in a space and you're not going to be blacklisted.
Yeah, that blog is what made me hate the word culture, by the way.
I thought it was me.
No, you had something to do with it as well. But so switch gears a little bit here. You're like a super public gal, right? Like you put a lot of stuff out there. You're very vulnerable. With every other Saturday morning, you get on the live stream and it's LinkedIn, it's broadcast to the entire work world. In fact, you were even dubbed the famous lady by Jordan with Langston Construction. That was a couple years ago now. What's something that the listeners don't know about you? What's something you haven't really put out there at all?
I talk about my dad a lot, and I talk about my brothers. So family, people wise, I think people know my background and who I am and things like that. It's funny you asked that question because this week has been probably did it on purpose, an emotional week for me. I've had a lot of things that have drawn out emotions that I wasn't anticipating. There's that. And so growing up, my dad, single father, raising kids, which is, everyone knows that's public knowledge. We didn't have hardly anything. Like, he was a teacher. He worked at Radio Shack and he drove the school bus. I don't know if you put all those hours together.
Yeah, I don't think that
But
makes, I don't adds up.
you got 4 kids at home because you're trying to raise them, and you are a school teacher. You drive the bus before and after school, and you work at Radio Shack part-time to be able to take care of them. And so those are a little bit more like the how we grew up and the things that we had and we didn't have. And we didn't have a lot. Our house wasn't glorious. When you go nowadays, like my kids, it blows their mind. But when he would go back to school shopping, getting your school supplies and stuff like that. I remember he had a Sears credit card. I don't know if you know about Sears, but that's way back. But he had a Sears credit card, and he would go to Sears and get our school supplies, which is crazy, in one outfit. One back to school outfit, one pair of shoes. Every year, that's what we did. And nowadays it's like first you get a week's worth of stuff, but it's one out. And my brothers and I even talk about that just now, how he handled it, what he did. He was a school teacher. I remember he'd get paid once a month because that's how that happened. And I'd sit with him, and that's literally how I learned the value of money as a young kid, was just sitting with him with the checkbook and all the bills when he got paid. And I learned how to write out checks and then balance the checkbook. And when he got paid, we'd get to go out to eat to a dinner outside of our house once a month.
Wow.
And that was like a celebration. It was payday. And then it was like managing the rest of the month with what we had. And this is so personal. I don't know. I was not anticipating this at all. But he did everything he could to make it work. To borrowing money from those places that interest rates were crazy. And I just remember as an adult and him getting to a point to where he wasn't in that place having to raise 4 kids, and going with him to they're not loan sharks, but whatever they're called, where you go and you borrow a chunk of money for a whole lot of interest. And I remember going with him the last time, walking around with him as a young adult, and him like paying them off, and me looking at them going, my daddy will never be back here. And it was like we would make a round of 2 or 3 places where he would write him a check, pay off whatever it is. And I would tell them, I would look at him, and they'd smile, and I'm like, he will never be back here. And just watching him finally not having to take care of 4 kids and being able to enjoy his life as when we were adults. And his life was way cut short, passed away 20 years ago, because it's like his whole life was about us. And finally, when he was able to do some things for him, it just got cut short. But like people, like the background when it comes to my dad and my brothers and our family, it's like deep. And it's how I value people and how I respect people now, and how I just want to help. And I want to recognize people. I don't want anyone to ever not know how appreciated they are, how valuable they are. And even if they are scrimping and saving and they don't have $3 in their bank account, it does not mean they don't add value, and that they are not amazing people to be celebrated.
And so I've never really related the whole people want to matter and the whole ripples of impact, but really it sounds like it stems from humble beginnings in your father. I mean, that he instilled it through example in your life, and then you've just taken it and just run with it.
I agree.
So I'll tell you, your father did one hell of a job raising you, because and in fact, even this weekend, you're being awarded, or you're being inducted into the Ring of Honor? Tell me more about that. What's that all about?
Okay, that's a little bit exaggerated, but we'll go with that. I grew up in McKinney, Texas, and was an athlete there. I played basketball my whole life, played basketball in college, got a scholarship.
Baller.
And he was very appreciative of that scholarship. But this week, actually today, my senior year, our volleyball team went to state, and we were not a volleyball town. Volleyball was not a sport I'm in Texas. So it's football, it's basketball, track, like those are big things. Volleyball, it wasn't a big thing back then. And we went to state my senior year, and our team is getting inducted into the McKinney ISD Athletic Hall of Honor today.
Damn. What is like, how does one do that?
I think there's a nomination and votes and all this stuff and way more. I just got the phone call. Like I didn't have anything to do with the nomination or anything like that, but it was, our coach, again, it's great. And this is the stuff we're talking about that really has nothing to do with anybody other than they just know more about me. But my junior year, we won 3 volleyball games the whole. I mean, like basketball went to playoffs and we did all this stuff. Volleyball won 3 games.
That's terrible.
We had 7 returning seniors coming back from my senior year from a 3-win team with a brand new coach, 3 years experience. She had 3 years experience coming in. She was a former athlete in McKinney, came back, head volleyball coach with a group of misfit people athletes, very much athletes that had 3-win season and just came in to do preseason before basketball. And I'd be danged if she didn't take us to state.
So what led to that change?
Oh, she broke us down to the basic fundamentals of volleyball my senior year. Like you're coming in as a senior and I was already looking at what colleges I was going to play at for basketball. You're coming in and you're just like, you got it all. You're the senior. You're coming in and you have a coach that's pretty much going, here's how you do this, the basic fundamentals of volleyball, because we've never really learned those things. So let me talk about some humility. As a senior in high school, that it's about to go to college and play basketball, and you're getting broke down to the point of the basic fundamentals of volleyball. And she never looked backwards. Every day was looking forward. Every day was what's tomorrow, what's tomorrow. And she believed in us when we didn't even know what we had in us. And it just every game, every day, every practice, she was just this amazing force of a person. And she's been there. She retired 30 years in McKinney and we were her first year.
I love that. So what part of that lesson do you still use today? How?
Oh, it's how I show up. It's absolutely how I show up. It's there's goodness in everything. I don't care. I don't care how toxic it is. I don't care how negative, how someone has been doing something for 20 years, how someone, the way they look, they're rough, they're worn, they are just tired. And we see that every day. It doesn't matter because you know what? When they see me, they see this. Even if there's a time, even at the beginning when it's, oh gosh, here Jennifer's here again, or oh, even when that's, and I know that's sometimes that starts. I know that, but I'll be danged if there's not one. I'm trying to think. I don't think there is not one superintendent, project manager, project executive, leadership, anybody that I interact with that don't expect a hug, don't anticipate the hug, and even lean in a little bit more now than maybe they did at the beginning because it was like, oh, we know it's going to happen. It's how I show up. That what going forward, I can't focus on what's behind me. And I've got to, and that's how I have to show up. She helped instill that in there.
But isn't it important to focus on those things that are behind you from time to time? Isn't that how we
can't forget them? No. I didn't say that they didn't happen. You can't forget them. Your focus has to be what's next. You can't forget what's happened because that is absolutely where you're learning, where you're growing. Absolutely, those things you can't forget them. You can't just go, oh, it's a new day. We're just going to start all over again. You can't forget what's happened and the things you've learned, the best practices that maybe you say, I've got to keep doing this again, or I've got to study this to be able to make it better. Absolutely, but you just can't focus on them.
Gotcha. So how do you best reflect to learn? How do you do that?
For me, it's the people around me. Like I'm not very good at holding a mirror up to myself because again, I'm doing so much. And this question came up earlier. I think it was Sam Morgan on LinkedIn. He had an amazing question is, as a lean leader, do you ask for help? It was a magical question. And it got me thinking, because one, I will ask for help from anybody. But my response was yes. And sometimes asking for help doesn't mean the answer is known. And that was my answer. And it was real because of the position I'm in and because of the people I engage with in the leading stuff, doing stuff that nobody else has done before. Asking questions sometimes doesn't mean someone has the answer already. we may have to get there together. We may have to talk about this and somehow figure out what that answer is. I have no problem going, I'm struggling. I'm not okay. I'm not sure what I need to do. Or, hey, can we brainstorm this and talk about this and whiteboard this to get this stuff out of my head? Because I know there's something there, but I don't know what it is. I'm 100% okay with that. The learning part is having those people around me, those amazing people that will hold up the mirror and help reflect back to me what's happening and what they see. And then I can learn good, bad, or indifferent, because sometimes it's not great, but it's being able to learn from that and being able to see and acknowledge, I do say that, but then I act this way. Ooh, that doesn't align very well. And the best mirrors, the best people that hold those mirrors are those two girls that I get to impact every day. You got
to know just the right angles, huh?
They do. And it's calling me out in 2 seconds. And the greatness about being out there and being visible, and as they call it, being an influencer, because that's a word. And I didn't realize that's what some things I do. But when you're doing that and you're out there, and then you got those people that are maybe behind the curtain with you, Mom, you can't talk about this out there on your live stream and then you act like this. Man, when you got somebody calling you out like that, you got to make a decision. You're either going to own it and try to get better, or you're going to put the armor on and get defensive and try to protect whatever you're trying to create, but not exhibit that behavior. And it's just, that's a lot of work in itself, and it's just not worth it.
You talked about having an emotional week. What's going on? How can we help?
As I was talking to my brother this morning, and he was just like, Jim, we got you. If you don't have it, just point to me. I'll stand up. I'll get the attention off of you. I think
this is your speech. You have a speech.
I do. I'm up there representing our team. So
can you give us a little sneak peek? Like, why don't you use this platform as a practice opportunity? Ready? Go.
My speech is summed up into 3 things. And it's funny because it's very much how I show up a lot of ways and the reason why that team was successful. 3 things. It was trust, humility, and faith. And those 3 things are what I'm focusing on today, on how this team, this misfit team that nobody expected anything from, yet this coach came in and had 100% expectation that we were going to win and we were going to be amazing, not even having an idea of what athlete she had, but just who she was. Those 3 things: trust, humility, and faith. And I'm talking about that today from a team that played 32 years ago. And it is still 100% if we show up with those 3 things in everything I do. You just got to show up like that and everything's going to be okay.
I love it. Speaking of a bunch of misfits, I've got your better half that just joined us here. Look who we got on along with us. Yeah.
What is going on? Man, I'm like all outfitted out.
You are.
Look at that. Good this morning. Dang, representing, huh? I like it. Where are you headed, Jess?
I'm headed to Jen's house right now.
Whoa, wait a minute. What's going on?
Well,
that's what is that? What do you call it? Fans only.
Oh, hey-o. I like it. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jesse Hernandez.
Yes,
thank you for crashing the party here with us, because I could always use some help, especially you ganging up on Miss Jen. Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've been broken down very much this entire time we've been on here.
The tables have been turned now. You are not in control anymore, Miss Jennifer.
Yeah,
That's an illusion. Control is an illusion. I already know that.
Yes.
So, Jess, we've talked a lot about people, a lot about ripples of impact, a lot of just the awesomeness of Miss Jen. And so welcome. Would love to just hear a little bit from you. How awesome is Miss Jennifer?
I think just the fact that I'm associated with her talks about how awesome she is. No, I'm joking. I think, what particularly stood out, maybe attracted me to say something going on with that woman, is the way she consistently shows up. Right. And like originally I met her, how abusive she is, Adam, aggressive and assertive. So I experienced that. And what's the best way? It was a comfortable aggression and abuse. But then I'm like, okay, this person's interesting. So I started watching her on LinkedIn and looking at the tone of what she posted. And there's this idea of practice what you preach. I think that nowadays we need to start thinking about practice what you post.
Mm.
And what I was actually able to see is in her posts and in her messaging and in person, there was a like complete consistency and a huge focus on people. And that's what I said, I need to learn a little bit more about what's going on with that person. And since then, here we are. What's it been, years live streaming and writing a book, and we got the reciprocal propulsion retreat going this weekend. Like all kinds of creative, even innovative ways to serve our community have come from, I think, the explosion of Jen and I connecting. And so she's unlocked like a whole new layer of creativity within me that really didn't exist before that. So how'd I do?
That's
Jen,
terrifying. Oh my
did I
goodness.
earn my $20, Jen?
Yes. 100%. I didn't have to talk for like that whole time.
I love it because she shows up like a ball of energy, and it's a good ball. Where do you get the energy from, Miss Jen?
I don't know, and I just have to own that. People that if they remember something from me, it's usually that, and it's what do you do in the morning? What do you do? How do you go to bed? I get questions on how do you keep showing up like this, and I don't know other than this is how God made me. And he gave me this metabolism to be able to do this and continue to function this way. And I am going to lean into it 100% until it's not there anymore. And that's all I can tell you.
What it makes me think of is every morning the sun comes up.
Yes.
And you are the sun every single morning. Whether there's some mornings where I'm like, oh yeah, sweet, the sun's up. This is awesome and amazing. And then there's other mornings where I'm like, golly, that damn sun is up and out, and golly, I need my glasses. What the hell? But always in a good way, right? Like you always show up. I love what Jess said, that consistency. And you bring those three things that you were talking about: the trust, the humility, and the faith. I think those are three amazing qualities of you, Miss Jennifer. So
Well,
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Where do we want to take this, Jess? What do you think?
We're about time.
I don't know. Let's get her a little more uncomfortable.
I've been uncomfortable. You just haven't been here.
She's like the sun, everything revolves around her. And yeah, she's got tremendous energy and huge impact on the world. But I think it's important, like back to the human and people side of things. There's things that Jen needs to work on. Since we got together, like connected with all this stuff, there's been several things that she's been working on. And so I think the Omniverse would like to hear about some of those human things that Miss Jennifer Lacy been working on.
Now you're earning your $20.
There's a lot of those, Jesse. I don't know. I'm supposed to limit those. I feel like every day I'm a work in progress, like every single day.
What are those things you're focusing on, Miss Jen?
The big one is listening. I've sucked at listening. One, because I get so excited and I want to share and I want to contribute and I want to help. And in my mind, like for a long time, that was me like giving. And I didn't realize so much that part of giving is shutting up. And I thought I needed to contribute. And when you can, in your mind, when you contribute, you're giving and you're giving people what they need and whatever. And sometimes people just need you to stop talking and to be focused and be intentional and to be in that space with them and to give them what they need. Is just the space to have somebody that cares and wants to help them get where they want to go. And that doesn't mean that I have the answers to give them. And Jesse's helped me with that. You've helped me with that. Understand that I suck at listening. And two, like it's a superpower. And so when I see it and it's happening and I'm just sitting back and I'm listening and I'm asking those very interested questions, it's this is what this is.
So what things are you doing to improve your listening skills?
I am not focused so much on, and again, thoughts are in my head all the time, ping-ponging like just crazy. And historically, because in my mind, like that, I don't want to forget that. I would be so focused on not forgetting something that pinged around in my head that whatever you just said for the last 30 seconds, probably got like little tiny pieces of that because I'm so not wanting to forget this one thing in my head that's so important to me. Very important to me. Very important to me. This is what I can contribute, blah, blah, blah. And so there's that. And so some of the things that I've intentionally tried to do is when I'm listening and talking to people and those thoughts come in, like not letting those take me down a rabbit hole, squirrel, all these things. Like I'm here. And if it's important enough, then when we finish and we're continually talking, it'll come back. That is scary, like so scary for someone that, again, I write everything down. I capture so many things because I don't want to lose it. But Jesse helped me tremendously in understanding that even when I was doing those things and capturing them, I was still limiting myself. And when he pushed me, I was not doing much exercise. I wanted to do more. We were, how can I do that? Let me start just walking. And I would not take any notepads or any phones or anything with me. And I would just go walk. And the ideas were there. And they were like all over the place, just blowing up in my head with no way to capture them. And I just kept walking. And then the ideas got bigger. And the ideas and what we can do got bigger. And then what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And because I didn't stop all those synapses happening in my brain, it turned into something that I could have never thought it could be. And then I share, and then all of a sudden it's you and Jesse and Felipe and all these other people that now these ideas are bigger. And then they're with other people that have big ideas. Like none of that could have happened if I just kept talking all this wonderful, great knowledge I have in my head.
It's an interesting perspective. So as you were wanting to capture and write down the ideas, at the same time, you're limiting your ideas' growth potential.
Yes. Is that like crazy?
That's wild. Yeah. Huh.
So I got a question, Jen. You're talking about learning how to listen and connect with what people are saying, ask interested questions. That feels like it would take, how did you like find the venue to practice that sort of?
Great segue, Jesse. So again, Jesse got a group together because he's got some experience with not listening and solution shanking and solutionizing and all these things. He's got some history with that. Got a group together and said, hey, we're just going to try to learn how to be better listeners by not trying to solutionize everything. Big picture and repetition, and then showing up and being vulnerable with more repetition of how do you ask the interested questions? How do you not try to solutionize and make assumptions, which I, again, still get called out this weekend on making assumptions with my children. But like, how do we show up and do that? And it's not just, I've got the answer. Here's the checklist. I just need to do this and this. And then now I'm going to be a better listener. It is not that. Because you have to reprogram your brain. And for me, it was a group that we got together with Adam and you and Kirby and Sean and Alicia. And we were able to, over and over again, have a dilemma, have an issue, listen first, take down some, okay, what are those key points? Then the response is only questions. What? Like only questions. So the only thing I can do in response to your issue is to ask you more questions. What do you mean? No, like you got a problem. I got an answer. I know how you can fix that. No, all you can do is ask questions, and not just any questions, but you have to ask open-ended questions. You have to ask non-leading questions. And the goal is to get them where they need to be without giving them an answer. What? And so that is like magical, crazy, voodoo, everything, because your like brain is going, what is going on? What is happening right now? And Adam's been there where it's like, I know the answer. I know what he needs to do. And I was the same way. We go through the whole exercise and I'm like, okay, now can I tell you what you should do? Like we were all there of yes, but it's repetition of learning that asking questions of people that are trying to figure things out is only going to help them. And it makes you a much better listener.
The thing that I took out of it was how one person's the problem owner, right?
Uh-huh.
And they just start vomiting about whatever problem it might be. And that could be like, hey, my coffee cup doesn't have a lid on it. That could be a huge problem.
Oh, logo, just some stuff.
Yeah, I have troubles with coffee cups from time to time. But so what's really interesting is like I'm sitting here talking about my coffee cup and how it could spill and it doesn't have a lid. But in reality, like 12 questions later, the issue is something completely unrelated that I wasn't thinking about that really just comes out of right field and socks you in the jaw. And it usually comes after a question from Jen or Jesse or something like that, where it's the obvious question that nobody has really thought about. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, you may start with one problem and then come to find out there's this other problem that just grows and then shows up out of nowhere. And that's the real
That's the
issue.
root. That's the root of all the craziness.
Yeah. It's almost like seeing the 5 whys in action. Yes.
That's a tool, isn't it?
I think so. It's one of those lean tools, I think they say. So we're coming down to the end here, and we're 55 minutes. It's gone by so fast. I got so many more questions for you. Jess, you'd
Listen,
be
did you
super.
see this agenda that he created?
Let me just show you what the agenda
This
looks
is what he shows me at the beginning. He says, here's the agenda for today.
like. Unfortunately, we're only about 20% through this. Let's see. We've hit most of the questions here, Miss Jen. Well, let's go to this one. Why do you like me more than Jess?
I've realized this is a balance. That's my easy default for the whole world. It's a balance. There's times where I need Adam a little more than I need Jesse, but there's also times that I need Jesse a little more than I need Adam. So it's a balance.
Good thing I can edit that out. Let's see. So let's do this, Miss Jen. Let's shout some people out who have really crafted or helped you become who you are. Like, who are those people in your life that have made a significant difference in you?
Okay, so I'm just going to put you and Jesse to the side because that I think I've hit that enough on this show already. So that's a given. And then my brothers, all three of them, Brian, Aaron, and George, they've just been my rocks. They're so super important to me, and they have been there for me, and they've just been my biggest cheerleaders, my biggest support system, called me out when they need to. And that was by design. My dad created that, and he pushed that, and he made us, when we got in trouble, he put us all on the couch and say, okay, you're going to sit there until you tell me who did it. So then that person can get punished and they can get disciplined. And like literally we started learning critical thinking skills and collaborating and all of that stuff when we were really small, because we have the one brother that did it, but I'm not owning it up. The other brother says, I'm just going to say I did it because that way I can just get punished and then we can move on. And we literally were having these collaboration sessions as kids. So I know it was by design. My dad, that's a given. I think everybody here's heard enough about my dad to know that he was our rock, and he just helped us be who we are today. And then Robbins and Morton, like I've been here for 20 years, and I literally could list 100 people within this firm that have just given me the opportunity, believed in me, encouraged me, pushed me to allow me to again be in the space that I'm in right now. And so just, I can't even list them all. This firm has given me the place that I'm supposed to be, even when it didn't exist. And they've just believed in me, given me the autonomy and the authority to be able to be where I'm at today, impacting a lot of people. So those have been the biggest things I think that have shaped who I am.
I love it. You threw us too hard to the side because Jesse is now gone. That was beautiful. I loved talking with you. You've been right under my nose this whole time. I can't believe it took me a year to get you on
You
here.
have to
Yeah.
in line. Sometimes it just takes a while.
Good things take time for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So do this for me. I don't like having the last word on these podcasts. I don't know if anybody ever notices that, but I certainly never have the last word in this podcast. So would love for you to take it away. Give me a mic drop. What do you want the world to know, or what do they need to know?
I will absolutely. My faith is super important to me, and I try to live it every day. And we're going to run into a lot of crazy situations, a lot of things that push us sideways, turn us upside down, that aren't all rainbows and sunshine. And I believe every day that God is in the details. So those little bitty times, those little interactions, those little things that can break you down and get you to take a step back and get you a little defensive, God is in all of those places.